have liked to have seen is documentary support. I mean, from where I sat and, listening as quickly as possible, I would have liked to have seen these presentations submitted in advance. But I don't think they were. I don't think I missed them in the packet. But I would have liked, as effective as the Maple broadband presentation was, I would have liked, I thought it largely hinged on the private equity component of Middlebury College and the guarantee of the bank loan, and not private equity, private financing, and the guarantee of the bank loan. And it also begs the question, which is going to be on my mind when they go to make a construction grant, what is their take rate and business plan doing with the probability of a competing ILEC in the neighborhood? So both of those points may or may not need to be further developed in order for us to make a decision, but those are questions left on my mind. So you had said, Brian, that you'd rather postpone the decision to contemplate things. I don't see a pathway to get around what the likely decision is or what the reasonable decision is, but I'm not opposed to postponing if that gives the board greater certainty and we can review these presentations.
Yeah, I mean, if the legal minds, which I am not one of, have determined that the connection to the legislative intent is such that it's ironclad that the appeal from a telco, can't be accepted, someone needs to just tell me that, because I don't have the training to know that. But that would make it a little bit more streamlined.
I think the question becomes, when you read the word conflict, does it conflict with the universal service plan of the CUD, or undermine it? I'm mindful of Laura's argument that a universal service plan by definition addresses the entire CUD network or the entire CUD footprint. Territory, yeah, thanks. But I'm just stopping with the idea that there's no question that there's a conflict between the universal service plan of the CUD and this small carrier who is an eligible provider. And the reason why I just stop there is because I think if we go on to say that every eligible provider, even small communications carriers, would have to provide a universal service plan for the entire CUD, we start creating a wonkiness within the legislation that could be pretty devastating. We've actually excluded people who are ILECs because they can't operate outside their designated territory.
Yep. I think the thing that's bothering me that now as we leave it, because so Patty, I agree with you. I'd love to see them go back, sit down at the table and try to be creative, right? But if we do something today, we hand the power for that completely back to Maple, right? Because all Maple has to do is say, this is a conflict. And if they don't really feel like good faith collaboration, they just say, this is a conflict. I've got the position I need out of the board. I'm not really, what interest do I have to do in compromise at this point? And that bothers me, frankly, so.
So don't
really good point.
So Brian, though, don't you believe they've made the case that they don't have to just say it's a conflict? We have to believe it's a conflict. Stan, have I got that right?
Yeah, the language is that the board determines that there's a conflict. It's not just that.
Okay, so from my perch again. So Richard, hope you're listening. I guarantee you, if I could come up with a alternate universe scenario where I put those two parties at the table and say, work it out, and I have some major leverage. I don't want to say gun to the head or anything, because that's probably not appropriate. But if I had major leverage to say, do not come out of that room until you figure something out that is a reasonable compromise for both parties, I bet they are more than bright enough together between the good minds in those two organizations to figure it out. And you know, that would be great. And I think if we rule on this today, the chance of that happening goes down.
It's a really good point, Brian.
I'd like to add to that.
Laura had her hand up first, Dan, so I'm going to go to Laura.
Yeah, I would agree. And so if in the fall of 2020, Otelco had not said no, and when Maple came in, Otelco was trailing behind and came into us for pre-construction and other things, and Otelco was trailing behind and saying, hey, hold on, we're an incumbent here. We want to work with these guys. I would be right with you, Brian. And I would be saying, you know what, Maple, I really would like you to go back and try and work with your incumbent there. I mean, it was not our intent to, to not work with incumbents. We wanted to provide opportunities. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And, so that's it for me.
Okay, Dan, you're up.
Well, they seem to have worked it out with Otter Creek. So I'm not sure they worked it out with one, but the other, they couldn't work it out. That's an open-ended item for me. They bring private funding to the table and they guarantee a delivery in 24 months. And I even heard them say that we would delay payment until the network was fully built and successful or something along those lines, which means that the VCBB would have the ultimate purse string to guarantee delivery and performance. So there's something there. And I agree with Brian that if we are making a choice today, then we lose the opportunity to have these parties work it out over the period of time and give them a swing at the piñata, so that if that opportunity is there and the leverage is appropriate, they can walk out both winners. And the best part is the consumer wins.
So Dan, just a question from me. Certainly you can't expect them to get that nailed in 5 working days or less. Yeah. So what do you think a reasonable period is to give them the opportunity, should they deem it plausible between them, right? So what would you give them?
I think 2 reasonable organizations working diligently could come to some letter of intent within a couple of weeks.
Easy. Or they'll sit down and try, and they'll blow up trying, and they'll know in a day or 2 that we're just not going to get over this hump.
How about if we give them 3 weeks? Just scheduling can be, I mean, we're starting in on the warm season. We've got graduations and things of that nature. 3 weeks.
Yep. So that keeps us on a regular.
I think that's more than generous.
And I would encourage both parties to bring in VCBB staff. Laura?
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing if that 3 weeks, what that does to Maple, A, and then also I'd like to hear affirmatively that both parties would like that time to negotiate.
Sure. Good question.
To negotiate something different than what they've brought to us today. I'd like to hear from both of them if they want that time.
Good point, Laura.
Let's call that a card in question. I would like Steve and Richard to respond. A, are they interested? And B, if so, is 3 weeks enough?
3 weeks is Memorial Day.
I would agree to the idea of this. I think that if the 2 of us sat across the table from each other, what our respective definition of success might be diametrically opposed. So I think it's not going to work unless there is a third party, be it the VCBB or whoever they select, to mediate that process with an assumption. And I'm just spitballing here, but the idea would be that third party is the one who walks away saying, there's no middle ground, it's not going to work. Because I think all you might hear from us at the end of a 3-week period is, I say it's not working and Hotelco says it's working or something like that, and then we're no better off. So and from my perspective, it's a waste of time. We don't
But you would
we
entertain
don't see
it?
eye to eye, so I don't see it working, but we'll be happy to do it. If that's what the VCBB wants, we're at your mercy.
Okay,
That
Richard,
might-
what do you think?
That might be overstated.
Look, we are willing to talk about anything if someone has a better idea. We have racked our brains and you know, frankly, I don't think it's ever a waste of time to having meaningful conversations. I don't have a solution in my head yet, but I haven't given it a lot of thought in the last 2 hours trying to find that solution, right?
Richard, would you be open for somebody from VCBB staff, either Christine
Sure.
or Stan or both?
Of course.
Okay.
Um,
And Dan raised a great question. I had that same question earlier.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking too.
I don't want you to answer this, but I want to pose it.
Yes,
Richard, you've figured it out with Otter Creek CUD.
yes.
Why can't you figure it out with Maple? Don't answer that question. Leave that.
well,
for
I will answer. It's a simple fundamental.
We own a network.
Otter Creek's not looking to own the network. They're just trying to bring service to their customers. And that is an easier solution for us to accept.
Well,
That is
we
an
haven't
easy
awarded them
solution.
funding yet either, so.
Understood. But if they don't, I don't know how many providers, they're not trying to create a telephone ISP, I don't believe. Their strategy is, let's just get service to the consumer. I mean, I think their response is going to be mostly incumbent. At least that's what I've been
Maybe
told.
Christine and Stan can figure out a way to thread that needle.
Yep. And that would include Maple having an open mind on that as well. So
Exactly.
I'm not trying to be prescriptive, but
I think we might be well served for our contractor advisor. I'm blanking on the name. We just heard from her.
Oh,
Tell us.
CTC.
TLC.
Tell us.
Yeah,
Tell us.
you all know who I'm talking about.
CTC.
Yeah, CTC, that's it. To be in the room as well. Because they can help us with the financial, or help the parties with financial analysis.
Great idea, Holly.
Patty,
Yes, Laura.
question for Maple. Do they have, are there things that they need from us in order to approach this issue, earnestly? Since we are an organization that is supporting the Vermonters that have come together to get this job done, are there tools that we can give you or provide for you in addition to staffing? Is there anything else that you need in addition to staffing to take this, to take a swing at this?
No. I have a bias here, I'm sorry, but I mean, ultimately with Hotelco, we're happy to meet and we're happy to try to sort something out. I don't see how we can meet. It seems kind of binary to me, but that's why I think we really need to have a third party inserted there, one that's not invested, or maybe they're properly invested. I don't know how they are invested, but that third party has to be the one who says, what about this? What about that? Because I'm shot. I can't think of a way to make this work so that we can both work together. I just don't see it.
All right,
But
Stan,
I'm open,
get
I'm
your
open.
creative juices going.
I'm sorry, your connection, Patty, I'm only hearing about every third word.
I just was saying, for Stan and Christine, get your creative juices going. I think that's what's necessary here. I think if some new thoughts are thrown on the table, it'll be something to poke around at. Just keep your mind open, Steve. Richard has a company that is proven he can get it done. He's got equipment, he's got supplies, he knows how to do this. Let's figure out a way to make this all come together. So this is good for Vermonters. Not personal, this is good for Vermonters in getting internet out there.
And then Steve, can I impose on you to ask those 3 member towns that provided letters of support to Otelka to just explain to the board how that reconciles with their commitment to CUD membership? And I don't mean that in a snarky way. I'm genuinely baffled by it. And if the explanation is as simple as, oops, we that sounded good, so we said yes, then I think it's a learning opportunity for people of what it means to be committed to a CUD.
Yeah, I've seen a copy of that letter, and I agree with Otelco's assessment. It in no way suggests that it's an either-or proposition. It just basically says, we're Otelco, here's what we're going to do for you. Please support us. So there's no suggestion in that letter. If that letter is the same one that all 4 towns received, if I were in the town, I'd say, well, I'm going to work both ends against the middle. I'll sign for whatever I need to sign in order to get my broadband service.
Well, then serve the interest of those people, you two, and get together in a room and hammer it out.
Exactly.
Customer's always right.
Yeah, so if I could also add, I would encourage Otelco to think about how to meet the intended effect of Act 71, which is greater public accountability. And, market competition is not the answer. That is why we have Act 71, because there is no market competition in rural Vermont.
Okay, I'm going to go to board members, and then I'm going to call our meeting time at 4:30 because I have a hard stop. I know we didn't get through the entire agenda. Holly, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious how we will, looking at our board schedule, it looks to me like we're talking about 3 weeks ending in the meeting on June 6th. I'm interested in knowing how we will proceed to deliberate on Maple Broadband's grant application and what impact this would have. I assume we would go ahead and pursue the discussion as the application was written. And then circle back with an amendment if we have an opportunity to get one, or do my colleagues have different ideas?
I mean, what I am looking at the calendar is June 6th is the end of the 3-week period. And that becomes a hard and fast timeline for both parties to come with something different. And if there's nothing new, then we take action on June 6th.
But what about the pending Maple Broadband application?
I don't think we can take action on that until this is resolved.
Oh, boy.
Didn't the application get paused because there was some, do we have a complete application now?
So.
Yes,
we, yep. Yes, we do now, but
Okay.
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I have a problem. I do not want to put out there that this can be kind of dragged out forever. I mean, I don't think that that's right.
It's 3 weeks.
So 3 weeks is fine, but I mean, I think saying that, I shouldn't say 3 weeks is fine, but going past that, I don't want to incentivize disruption.
And this is 3 weeks during construction season.
Right.
Nobody's building this summer, though.
Exactly.
Not in this.
Right, we've got time to have, I think we have time. I wouldn't extend this out to 3 months, but 3 weeks. I think they can have reasonable success in 3 weeks to get back.
Steve is trying to insert a comment here, and we have a motion pending on the table.
Hey, Steve.
Okay. My biggest concern is that we need to make this happen. And so we need a strong arm in the room, and that's the VCBB. So what I'm asking is that the VCBB participate actively in this process. They facilitate the meetings, they drive the discussion, and so that they can report back to the board with a straight face that this was done in accordance with your wishes, and here's what the outcome is. So we want to make sure that it's monitored. You don't want me to weigh in on what I thought would happen. You need the VCBB to report on that.
Absolutely our expectation, Steve.
Thank you.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, Holly, the only motion on the table was not seconded. That's on Otelco's, what to do with Otelco. So there's no action on the table.
I believe Laura is
withdraw
saying
my-
she seconded.
You did?
I did.
So
I'm
it's
happy to
either,
withdraw it if that's necessary.
But,
I will
But I
withdraw
did
my
ask-
motion. I will withdraw my second.
okay, perfect. I withdraw the motion. I did ask Stan for some language so we could clean it up. It was a general concept, so it wasn't a nice, pretty motion. All right, I will move that we adjourn because I have a hard stop 4 minutes ago. Dan has seconded that. All those in
Aye.
favor?
Hey,
Let me say discussion.
Here,
All
we
those
may-
in favor?
I think,
do we need to have a chance for public comments, even if
No.
not all board members can be here?
I move,
I have a hard stop.
I move that we continue this meeting on our next regularly scheduled meeting. So we will have public comment at that continued meeting.
At the top, at the top.
Great idea.
And we're going to start that at 1 p.m. next Monday. You all have an
That's it.
email
Yeah,
about
we
a
have another
conflict.
Yeah, please
I
update
need a
the
second though,
invite.
don't we need a second?
I'm going to
Second,
second
Holly.
Holly's amendment motion.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
You
Aye.
did.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will see you all next week with public comment starting out our meeting.
Richard and Stephen,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your participation. That was very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you,
and it was
everyone.
very deliberative.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Bye, everybody.